Hello everyone. If you follow our channel, I bet you're thinking it's been a long time since you've seen the orchid room. For family reasons, we were away from the orchids for what ended up being 2 months. So now that we just got back, I thought I could take you along in checking how the plants are and also show you, the less glamorous side of the orchid hobby. Because as you can see, this room is a mess. I was expecting to find a lot less green, however, because we did have someone set to come every couple of weeks to put a little bit of water in each orchid, but things got a bit mixed up and they ended up only coming twice during the 2 months we were away. So I was expecting to come home to a lot of dead orchids, to be honest. But looking at the room, at least at first glance, they seem to have fared really decently, everything considered. We even have a lot of flowers right there in the middle. So I thought we could go through the shelves and this mess and kind of check out how things are doing. So right in the middle of the room, we have all the complex Phalaenopsis, because we keep them high on the top shelf of our orchid furniture. And just to make it easy to the person who was going to come and water them, because she's not the tallest lady, we put them down onto the floor so it would be easier for her to water them. And when we first left, I don't think we had a single one of them with open flowers. So, as I said, I was expecting to get into the room and find a bunch of brown, and instead I had this show. It's going to be a bit of trouble to untangle them all, because they seem to have grown the flower spikes all tangled up together, but I don't see that much damage. I think there are a few yellow leaves, and I hope I don't find any stem or crown rot. Because again, the person that came to water them is not an orchid grower, they don't know much about orchids, and I didn't want to overwhelm them with a lot of instructions. So I told them to put a little bit of water in each pot and try to avoid the plant. But because of space, I left them a bit too close together, I can see that now. So I could not blame her if she got some water in the plants. The plan for after filming this video is to go through the orchids one by one, giving them some water and putting them back on the shelves. I should probably give the room a clean too, but I honestly don't know if I have it in me, if I have the energy for it. So I think I need to just be happy with myself if I manage to tidy up the room and give them some hydration. This fell over here, as you can see, is the only one that does not look very good. The stem is not mushy, but these top leaves do not look their best. So something has happened to this plant. Maybe not even related to us being gone, but yeah, it doesn't look very good. It would be a pity if I lost this one, because it is absolutely gorgeous. And of course, the ones I don't care that much about are perfectly healthy. Over here, also on the floor, we have some of the plants we placed outside for a cold winter rest. Some of them we pulled inside when we knew we had to go away, because I couldn't trust really low temperatures with them, like the Paph and the Phals. But these ones were the ones I knew had to stay outside for longer, so we just risked it and left them inside. And what happened was that while we were away, we kept getting notifications on our phones because we have those hygrometers that connect to Wi-Fi. We happened to be away for 2 months where the weather was kind of crazy here. So when the person who came over to water the plants came the second time, we just thought, screw it, let's ask her to bring the plants inside and just place them on the floor. Again, I was expecting to find these ones in much worse condition. Let's get a little bit closer here. And yeah, the chysis, even though it wasn't watered, it doesn't look that dehydrated. And, oh, is that a flower coming in there? Well, that would actually be awesome. So yeah, the chysis seems to have done well. The cold seems to have worked because she has 2 new growths and a flower. If we look here at these 2 dendrobiums, they clearly had their winter rest. As you can see, they lost a bunch of leaves. This one lost most of the leaves even. The pseudobulbs are actually still plump, so I don't think it has woken up from the rest yet. And now I'm not really sure if I should water it, if I should wait for it to start sprouting new growths. But again, much better than I was expecting these plants to look. I am a little bit disappointed that the Kingianum doesn't seem to be flowering, because that's why I put it outside, hoping it would stimulate it to flower. And it lost a bunch of leaves, which I've been told isn't normal. They're supposed to take a bit of cold in the winter but not lose their foliage. They're not deciduous. But this one clearly loses its leaves in the winter. Wait, I had another dendrobium. Yes, I had another Kingianum that went outside. Did it not get brought inside, or? Well, I'm gonna have to search for it in the middle of the mess. Okay, after cleaning all the dead leaves, turns out it does have a bunch of flower spikes. I hope this year they all decide to open at roughly the same time, because one of the problems we have with Kingianums is that they put out a couple of flowers, those wilt really fast, then another flower spike puts out flowers, and we never achieve that beautiful full look that Kingianums are known for. Over here, our coelogyne cristata seems to have done wonderfully with being outside. When we first brought it, she came with these big, beautiful bulbs, but the only thing he did in the last few years with us has been these really puny, semi-dried up bulbs that I really don't like. But these 2 new big ones seem to show that she's starting to recover finally from being in our care. I wish orchids didn't have to recover from being in our care, but that's where we're at. This mess of a plant is the one that has given us best results with being outside. And this year, maybe because we put it outside a bit late, then it was brought back in because the temperatures were going wonky. But I don't think it benefited from it as much as on the other years. It's starting to make new growths, so I'm pretty sure the rest is over. And I think I see 1 or 2 little buds forming. But so far, I'm not predicting those beautiful flowerings that this dendrobium usually gives us. Looking at our mounts, they all seem really healthy. Although the sphagnum is completely bone dry. We seem to have missed most of the flowering of the leptodes, which makes me a little bit sad. The flowers that are still left seem to be on their way out. The other plants seem to have fared decently well. The Phalaenopsis decided to really grow that one root it was working on, probably because it's not used to being dehydrated, so water. Although the plant itself does not seem dehydrated, so maybe it just had a growth spurt. Since last year we put all of our Oncidiums on top of really tall shelves in another room, These were the plants that we had to bring down so that the person who came to water them could reach them. So the only place we could find was our desk. That created this beautiful mess. Again, we were expecting to find a lot more brown leaves, a lot more damage from being left alone for 2 months. But they are, at least at first sight, pretty okay. Don't get me wrong, some of the leaves are brown and some of the pseudobulbs are clearly shriveled. But considering everything, I was expecting much worse. This random Oncidium even decided to flower, even though it wasn't in the best conditions. But right next to it, we have our Paphiopedilum that seems to be of this group who fare the worst. And you know, it's no surprise. We had just repotted it into a brand new medium right before we left. And for a plant that doesn't like to dry out, I'm gonna just count my blessings that it just has this damage. But I'm pretty sure this one is gonna at least pout for a few months. The Maltonia is not very happy either. But there's some new growths back there, so I think it's gonna be okay. The Phalaenopsis, of all the Oncidiums, the Phalaenopsis, if we look at it, it looks like she wasn't even phased. Even though she had just been repotted, and she is, again, bone dry. The Zygopetalum also thought this was the perfect time to put out the 2 droopiest flower spikes. But at least the flowers are still here. On the path shelf, everyone seems to be doing just fine. Again, it's like the thirsty plants seem to be the ones that did better somehow. Our Paphiopedilum is surprising us with 3 flowers, which, considering it hadn't been looking its best, is really nice. And I have to go take a closer look at them because I hope they're still decent enough that we get to film them. Surprisingly, our Paphiopedilum spent some time outside, came inside before it was supposed to, and it still has the same flower it went outside with, and it seems to be doing great. And that American hybrid type no ID path we have there is also giving us 2 flowers. So all in all is well with the paths. On the Maxillaria shelf, no one looks that happy, but I don't think it's irreversible. This one was just blooming and now it's putting on new growth, so I'm pretty sure it's not very happy with being dry. But knowing how resilient this plant is, I'm pretty sure as soon as she gets some water, everything will be fine. The Tendifolia, as you can see, is losing a bunch of leaves. It's a bit more shriveled than usual, but not terribly so, so another one I'm not worried about. The Variabilis is doing a very weird thing, where it's losing leaves, it's shriveling, and somehow putting out flowers. Oh no, I think she flowered a lot while we were away, because she is absolutely covered in little buds. Little buds, no, little dried out flowers. So this is another one that we pretty much missed the flowering. Considering I don't love the smell of this one, not terribly heartbroken. The Schunkiana has 1 dried up bulb and a new growth, so pretty sure she's going to do great too. If we look at our Vandas, we have a couple of surprises. First of all, I don't think I knew that this Renanthera was in spike. So we got here and it's in full bloom with 3 flower spikes. Over here, the minis all seem to be doing great. Not surprised, Vandas are pretty resistant to pretty much everything, actually. Our nail stylus had a couple of flower spikes when we left. Those have dried out, so now it decided to gift us with 3 more? No, I think 4. Yeah, I think 4 more flower spikes. And this is another one that we can smell downstairs. Another little surprise is our Phoenicia that I think was in bloom recently. I'm a little bit mixed up with dates and time going by, but I'm pretty sure it bloomed recently and it's now flowering again. So I'm starting to think that when they're doing well, Phoenicias don't really have a flowering season as much as they'll just put out flowers whenever. At least that seems to be what ours is doing. Here we have a few Phalaenopsis that we also took off the shelves so they wouldn't be so cramped and they would be easier to water. They seem to be doing great, actually. They're all in spike. That Gigantea cross over there even has opened one of the flowers. It's not the best flowering it has made, but I don't think it has anything to do with us being away. Our Bashi Canary, unfortunately, grew its flower spike up against the wall, and the flowers are all squished. But they're healthy, and that's all that matters. Over here, one of our speciosa varieties is still putting out new flowers. It is doing that thing again, that the old flowers, instead of fading, just turn green. At some point I thought it might have been because of a pesticide we used, but that shouldn't affect flowers that are being born, quote unquote, now. I don't know. We also have a new flower spike over there and a new flower on our Coelogyne. It's coming out of a terminal spike, but at least it's a flower. On this shelf, everyone seems to be doing okay too. We still have those green flowers that, out of stubbornness, I'm not cutting. And back there, our fairy tale joy is also growing flowers squashed up against the wall. So, yeah, I have those to pull out. On this shelf, our vile coral is looking beautiful, as she always does. Even though we're really late to repot her, she still makes beautiful flowers. However, over here, this hybrid decided to grow this year a really tall flower spike that is now hitting the shelf. Let me see if I can show you. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that flower spike is going to be a little bit mangled. I need to pull it out when I water the plants and see how bad the damage is. Usually this plant grows its flower spikes forward, but this time, just because we were away, I decided it'd be better to grow it towards a shelf. Very smart indeed. Damage is not that bad. It's just a wee bit crooked. It is, however, absolutely gorgeous. Down here, our mini phals are not only doing great, but they're all pretty much flowering. Over here, everyone is just a little bit dehydrated. Nothing I didn't expect with these particular species. And over here we have some new flowers. The Bronze Maiden, the Jarro Pink Girl, and our Finley hybrid, all flowering for us. Okay, and now it's the Cattleya shells. And weirdly enough, I think they show more signs of dehydration than more moisture-loving plants that we've seen so far. I don't think any of them is like at risk, but I see a lot of shriveled pseudobulbs. All the Encyclicochleata hybrids are, of course, making flower after flower, even though they look dehydrated. And that's no surprise because these plants just keep flowering throughout most of the year. Up there, we can tell that our epidendrum flowered twice while we were away. And of course, one of the flowers got smushed up against the wall. And back there, I think one of our Cattleyas is still in flower. But of course, another flower smushed up against the wall. Next to it we have No ID Cattleya that we've had for 4 or 5 years. Never did great, refused to flower, and apparently while we were away it made a flower that dried off and we didn't get to see it. And at this point I don't think I even remember what this one's supposed to look like. Over here next to the Cattleyas, we have some of the newest plants in our collection that I left here. I kept them here before we left just to keep an eye on them because these are more delicate, finicky plants. And I honestly didn't expect any of these to be alive by the time we got back. And they don't look great, don't get me wrong, but they are alive. This bulbophyllum is very dehydrated, but making new roots. The aerangis lost a leaf. That dendrobium back there, it lost a couple of growths that were already not looking good, but the rest of them actually look good and they're plump and hydrated. So is this dendrobium. The gastrochyllus is also doing good. It doesn't even feel dehydrated. Our dendrobium senile was in flower when we left. I didn't even manage to film it, I think. But now it's making a little new growth on this side and yeah, on the other one too. Our Psychopsis back there doesn't look great. I think those older bulbs are done. But hopefully with some hydration, she can recover. Over here we have the Phalaenopsis schilleriana, which I'm pretty sure the flowers are on their way out. So you can see our schilleriana flowers are still having those little spots that I still can't find any resources to tell me if it's some sort of virus or if this is just a variety that does this. Next to it, We have one of our Paphiopedilums that was in flower right before we left, and now is tremendously dehydrated. Nothing that a good watering can fix. But what I find interesting is that I don't think these flower spikes are drying out. And I wonder if they can keep producing flowers. Last time this one flowered, I think each flower spike only made one flower. But now I don't know. It's going to be interesting to find out. This poor Phalaenopsis that was here in the corner had just lost most of its roots after an unfortunate repot and was on its way to recovery before we went. So between producing flowers while we were away and the lack of water, it's really looking rough. I'm hoping it's like a cat and has 9 lives, because this one has been promising to die for a while now. And it's a pity because it really is one of my favorites. A viewer identified it for us recently, but we bought it as a mini Phalaenopsis, no ID. And I like it most of all because it's really scented. And nowadays you can find a lot of scented mini Phalaenopsis for sale in garden centers. But back when we bought this one in, I want to say 2015, that was a really rare occurrence. And here we have the Laelia and baby Cattleya shelf. And I can see that we missed the flowering from Laelia lauri, which I was really looking forward to. But these don't seem to have suffered from dehydration as much as the big Cattleyas have. Which again, funny, because these are the plants that you would think would require more moisture. They're seedlings or Laelias, which everyone says they're litophyte and that they grow on rocks so they don't require a lot of moisture. But in my experience, at least with my setting, they take more water than the other Cattleyas. A few, of course, look a bit dehydrated, but I'm pretty sure they're going to bounce back very quickly. Oh, and I think back there, yeah, one of them is in flower. I hope it didn't grow smushed up against the wall too. Let me see. Okay, that second flower is a little bit wonky, but overall they look really nice. And of course, I literally made a short video about this plant and what a disaster it is to try and shame myself into repotting it, and it still hasn't been done. Over here on the miniature Oncidium and miniature species shelf, again, this was one of the shelves that I expected to find a lot of bad news, and overall it seems to look good. We missed most of the flowering on the Oncidium croesus. It seems to have kept flowering even though it looks severely dehydrated. I wasn't expecting to find our little Promenia in very good conditions because it didn't look good when we left. But not only is it still alive, it seems to be making flowers. One of them is a bit squished up against the glass, so I'm going to have to deal with that when I water it. We have some accordion leaves on our gomesa, and I think the only thing that saved this plant is the fact that we had just repotted it into full sphagnum before we left. Over on this side, a lot of plants seem to be suffering a lot with dehydration, which was to be expected. It seems to have particularly affected the Dendrobium, our tolumnias, and this Oncidium. This Gastrochyllus was already not doing great. What you can see here is already a bunch of keikis that I chopped off and replanted because the main plant was dying and the keikis were making roots but being too far away from the medium. So it doesn't look great, but it didn't look great when we left either. We seem to have missed the flowers on the Horella, and it seems that it was a really good flowering. And we also missed the flowers on this tiny bulbophyllum that we have. It's a pity because I absolutely love this guy. I always get flabbergasted by how tiny the flowers are. We didn't, however, miss the flowers on this tolumnia, but because we weren't here, the flower spike grew all wonky. Lastly, we have this shelf where we keep our smaller dendrobiums and our African orchids. This shelf doesn't look too bad, and actually back there's the missing Dendrobium kingianum. I guess we brought it inside before we left and I didn't even remember anymore. The aerangis and the angraecums mostly look okay. We seem to have missed the flowering on the aerangis fastuosa, and by the looks of it, it was a really good flowering. Back there, the aeranthes grandifolia doesn't look very good, but that plant has been sulking a little bit since I repotted, so I guess the dead leaves were already on their way out before we left. Some of the dendrobiums are looking quite a bit dehydrated. Our Dendrobium lamulatum has a bunch of accordion leaves, which I had discovered before we gone that it has a bit of a tendency to do that. The Dendrobium aberrans, even though it kept its flowers, is very, very shriveled. So these plants need to be hydrated as soon as possible. We told the person who came to water our plants that any plant that didn't need watering, we would put on the top shelves. So that's what we did with our Catasetums. As you can see, they have new growths and they're starting to produce fruits, but even though we were away for 2 months, they're nowhere near ready to start being watered. So all is well with the Catasetums. We also placed on the top shelves our Pinguiculas, because we didn't want to confuse her with the whole we have to water with distilled water. So we thought we're just going to put the carnivorous up there and fill up the trays with distilled water, and hopefully by the time we get back, they won't be too bad. We weren't expecting to be away for quite as long. So I'm really happy to see that even though they didn't get any water in their tray for 2 months, they're still holding on strong. So there you go. These are all the orchids after being left alone for 2 months. Oh no, I actually forgot to tell you about the big Vanda over there. As you can see, it looks okay. It seems to have lost a lot of the old leaves that it was already letting go of slowly, and being dehydrated seems to have just accelerated the process. And this is because this big Vanda, because again we didn't want to overcomplicate things for the person who was coming to water the plants, we just left it. When we're here, we usually dunk it into the bucket that you see under it, let the pot soak up with water a little bit, then hanging it up again, letting it drain. It would have been too much to explain over the phone, so we thought it can stay a few weeks without water. So that's mostly it about the orchids. Our houseplants didn't fare so well, but at this point I just have to go and start watering all the plants. I don't really have it in me to keep filming all the houseplants as well. I was even going to try and, find a way to film cleaning up the room and watering them and tidying them up. But we just got home from a plane and I really don't have it in me. Either way, I hope that just like this, the video was interesting enough, that you enjoyed seeing that, as much as we baby our orchids, they're not made of glass. Sometimes they can withstand way more than we think. And that if you have to step away from your collection, it's not going to be the end of the world. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you stay tuned for more videos from us, because hopefully we'll be able to slowly start uploading regularly like we used to. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and put a like on this video if you enjoyed it. And come back next week for another video. Goodbye.